Tonight, we explore the captivating world of the Nubian Black Pharaohs, rulers who overturned the power of one of history's greatest empires. Before you settle in, please like the video and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Also, tell us in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who joins us from across the globe. Dim the lights, perhaps turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you have just awakened in the 8th century BCE, and you are no ordinary person. You are about to be the first Nubian pharaoh of Egypt's 25th dynasty. The morning sun streams through the window of your palace in Napata, throwing long shadows across the sandstone floor. Outside, the gentle flow of the Nile, the lifeblood of your kingdom of Kush, can be heard. The good news is, you are about to become one of history's most powerful rulers, commanding an empire stretching from deep in present-day Sudan to the Mediterranean Sea. The bad news is your time as a Nubian pharaoh will test every ounce of your diplomatic skill, military prowess, and divine connection to the gods. You swing your legs over the side of your bed, though bed might be too simple a word for the ornate sleeping platform you occupy. Crafted from fine woods, adorned with gold and ivory, and draped in exquisite linens, the space is spacious and cool despite the outside heat. Hand this to the ancient Nubians, they mastered construction. Thick walls deflect the desert heat, and strategically placed windows admit refreshing breezes. A servant enters quietly, head bowed. "Great one," he murmurs, "the day awaits your divine presence." You rise and stretch, already feeling the weight of responsibility pressing upon your shoulders. Today is no ordinary day. You will finalize plans for your northern campaign, the historic push into Egypt that will forever change the relationship between these two ancient powers. Two attendants enter to begin your morning rituals. You might imagine being a pharaoh means idly relaxing while issuing decrees all day, but you are about to discover that every moment of your existence is filled with religious importance and royal customs. First is the purification. Water from the Nile deemed sacred is brought into a golden basin. As it is poured over your hands, prayers are uttered to Amun-Ra, the great deity your people have worshipped for generations. The Nubians have long revered Amun-Ra, the same deity the Egyptians worship at Karak. This shared religion will be crucial in your coming conquest. You are not merely invading Egypt, you perceive yourself as restoring proper worship and order to a land plunged into chaos. Furthermore, your body is anointed with oils and perfumes crafted from ingredients sourced from across Africa and beyond. These scented oils originate from distant lands like Lebanon and Greece, proving the reach of your kingdom's trade routes. Palace attendants work silently, their hands skilled and adept. The most exquisite oils are exclusively yours. A single vial may cost what a common farmer earns in a year. Next is your attire. You must adapt to the weight of kingship. Your ensemble is a simple white kilt of the finest linen. A broad, colorful sash wraps around your waist and hangs in front. This fabric is not ordinary. It is intricately decorated with patterns signifying your royal status. Gold sandals grace your feet, and heavy gold collars, armbands, and bracelets adorn your body. These pieces of jewelry are not merely decorative, they are powerful symbols, many bearing protective amulets and inscriptions to the gods. Finally, your attendants present the crowns. Today, you will wear the distinct double crown, symbolizing your rule over both Upper and Lower Nubia. It is surprisingly heavy, requiring you to keep your head high and steady despite the weight, just one of the many physical demands of kingship. By the time you are fully dressed and adorned, the morning will be well advanced. Your clothing alone may add 15 pounds, and you will wear it through the heat of the day. You must be physically strong enough to endure this. And this is before you even commence the actual governance. The council awaits, Great One, announced by the chief steward, who bows deeply. You nod and proceed toward the great hall, where your military commanders and advisors have assembled. Your walk is deliberate and measured. A pharaoh never rushes. Every movement you make is observed and interpreted. A hurried step might signal anxiety, a slumped shoulder a sign of weakness. The demand to appear divine and infallible is ceaseless. The great hall falls silent as you enter. Stone columns soar overhead, their capitals carved like the papyrus plants of the Nile. Light streams through high windows, illuminating vibrant wall paintings depicting your ancestors communing with the gods, leading battles and ensuring the land's prosperity. Your advisors prostrate themselves as you take your seat on the throne. The throne is a masterpiece of ebony and gold. Its arms, crowned with lion heads, symbolize royal power and protection. "All rise," you command, your voice echoing through the chamber. The council meeting commences, immediately immersing you in intricate debates concerning military strategy, religious duties, and diplomatic tactics. Here, you realize that being Pharaoh is more than just appearing magnificent. It demands sharp intelligence and masterful political acumen. "Your general tactics are charted on papyrus," he begins. "Our scouts report that Egypt remains divided. The local princes squabble amongst themselves. Their central authority has collapsed." He points to various locations on the map: Memphis, Thebes, Heraclea, all controlled by different factions. You nod thoughtfully. Egypt, once united and mighty, has fractured into competing power centers. The land to your north has entered what historians would later call its third intermediate period, marked by political fragmentation. For centuries, Egypt was the dominant power, sometimes governing Nubian territories, but now the situation has reversed, and the Temple of Ammon at Karak, which you reference as Egypt's most sacred site, is the focus. "The priests grow concerned," replies your high priest, believing proper rituals are being neglected. They will embrace a powerful leader who honors the ancient customs. This is vital knowledge. You are presented not as an invading conqueror, but as a restorer of the ancient Egyptian ideals of truth, equilibrium, and cosmic harmony. Your campaign will be portrayed as a religious obligation, reintroducing proper worship to a land that has deviated from divine principles. As the discussions unfold, you discover your forces are almost prepared. The legendary Nubian archers, the feared bowmen of Kush, whose skill is renowned across the ancient world, form the core of your army. These warriors can strike targets from distances seemingly unattainable by other armies of the era. Your personal guard, made up of the most elite of these archers, stands at attention along the hall's walls, yet military strength alone will not guarantee your position as Pharaoh. You must also comprehend the intricate religious rites that validate royal authority in both Nubia and Egypt. The Oracle of Ammon at Jebel Barkal has spoken favorably of your campaign, as the high priest informs you. Jebel Barkal, you know, that distinctive flat-topped mountain, whose pinnacle resembles a rearing cobra when viewed from the west, is sacred to both Nubians and Egyptians. Believed to be the southern homeland of Ammon-Ra himself, the temple at its base has been a holy place for centuries, and the blessing of its oracle is vital for your plans. "When shall we march north?" you ask your generals. "With the next full moon, divine one," the answer arrives. "The river levels will be suitable for our ships." You nod in agreement. The timing is auspicious. The campaign will commence shortly. As the council meeting ends, you are reminded of your next task: a visit to the temple to make offerings to Ammon-Ra. A pharaoh knows no rest. Your day is a precise arrangement of religious rituals, administrative choices, and public appearances. You rise from your throne, and your attendants once again follow you as you proceed to the palace exit. Outside, the day's heat strikes you like a physical blow. During the hottest season, temperatures in this region can exceed 120 degrees Celsius. Even before noon, the air shimmers with heat above the stone paths. Your people line the route to the temple, kneeling as you pass. To them, you are not merely a king, you are a living god, the embodiment of divine power upon earth. It is a heavy burden to carry. All blessings, from the Nile's floods to successful harvests, are thought to stem from your divine connection. Conversely, every hardship may be seen as a sign of divine displeasure. The procession moves through Napata, your capital. It is a prosperous city, featuring mud brick homes for commoners and grand stone structures for the nobility and temples. Markets are vibrant with activity as traders bring goods from across the globe: gold from the eastern desert mines, ivory from the south, exotic woods, spices, and precious stones. You should be proud of this city. Napata sits at a vital crossroads of trade routes, enabling your kingdom to control commerce between Central Africa and Egypt. This strategic location has yielded immense wealth for your kingdom, funding both your armies and your magnificent construction projects. Before you rises the Temple of Amun, its massive stone pylons dominating the surrounding structures. Constructed in the Egyptian style yet featuring distinctive Nubian elements, it stands as a monument to the cultural ties between your people and those you intend to govern. Priests in white linen await your arrival, their hands holding the scent of smoking incense. The temple interior is cool and dim, a stark contrast to the brightness outside. Light streams through narrow apertures, forging dramatic rays that illuminate the holy places. Incense fills the air, and the gentle murmur of prayers establishes a hypnotic ambience. Within this inner sanctuary, accessible only to you and the chief priests, rests the sacred bark of Am, a model boat housing the deity's spirit. You execute the rites precisely according to tradition, presenting tributes of food, wine, and valuables. The high priest chanted prayers in both the Nubian and Egyptian languages, further demonstrating your kingdom's cultural duality. The ritual was lengthy and physically demanding, requiring prolonged standing and precise movements while adorned in heavy royal regalia. It was exhausting, yet no sign of fatigue or discomfort was permitted. Divine kings exhibit no human weakness. As the ceremony ended, the high priest turned to you. Amun has spoken. He announces, blessing your northern campaign and confirming you as his chosen one to restore proper worship in the two lands. This divine endorsement is the final piece you needed. With God's blessing, you can now proceed with absolute confidence in your cause's righteousness. Emerging from the temple, you blink in the harsh sunlight. Your next duty awaits, a public audience where you will hear petitions from your people. Accessibility to your subjects, even symbolically, is a crucial element of Nubian kingship. A shaded pavilion is set up in the central plaza. You take your seat as the common people approach, allowed to come near but not too closely, and only after being fully searched by your guards. Security is always a concern for a ruler, even a divine one. Petitioners arrive one by one. Farmers seeking land dispute resolution, merchants demanding trading rights, and officials reporting on outlying provinces each approach you with profound difference, often trembling in your presence. It is strange to ponder that despite your absolute power, these brief interactions might be the only time your ordinary subjects ever behold your face. You listen intently to each petition. A pharaoh must be both firm and just. Your choices will echo across the kingdom, shaping your reputation as either a just sovereign or a cruel tyrant. Each verdict carries significant weight. A disagreement between two village leaders draws your focus. They contend over water entitlements, a vital matter in this dry land. After considering both perspectives, you deliver a judgment that astonishes your advisors. Instead of simply favoring the more influential man, you distribute water access more equally, yet command both villages to contribute labor toward an improved irrigation system that will ultimately benefit both communities. The divine Pharaoh is wise beyond measure, murmurs one of your advisors, genuine admiration in his voice. You allow yourself a slight smile. This is the practical wisdom that has helped your kingdom prosper. While the Egyptians to the north are fractured by internal conflicts, your Nubian state has remained stable and increasingly powerful. The day's heat has reached its peak. Even with servants waving ostrich feather fans to create a breeze, the temperature is nearly unbearable. A lesser person might retire to rest during these hottest hours, but a pharaoh's duties never cease. Next, a meeting with foreign envoys awaits. Your kingdom maintains diplomatic and trade ties with powers across the region, from the Central African kingdoms to the city-states of Phoenicia and beyond. Today, a delegate from a Red Sea coastal trading power has arrived with gifts and a proposal for expanded trade relations. The diplomat approached with elaborate courtesy, offering luxurious gifts such as rare spices, beautifully crafted textiles, and a cage of exotic birds with plumage in unseen colors. In return, you offered him gold, the precious metal renowned in your land, along with ivory and finely crafted Nubian pottery. The diplomatic talks are intricate, involving tariffs, protected trade lanes, and mutual defense against raiders threatening merchant caravans. You expertly manage these negotiations, gaining advantageous terms while preserving the dignity and mystique of your divine status. As the foreign envoy leaves, greatly impressed by your wisdom and court splendor, your chief steward approaches. "Divine one," he says softly. The royal architect seeks your assent for the new temple designs. You suppress a sigh. The administrative burdens of kingship are ceaseless. You must now examine plans for the monumental structures that will solidify your legacy. These edifices will endure for millennia, conveying to future ages your authority and your piety toward the deities. The architect unfurls papyrus scrolls with meticulous renderings. The proposed temple complex is vast in scope. Massive pylons, columned halls, sanctuaries, and accompanying structures will require years of completion and the labor of thousands. The central sanctuary will align perfectly with the rising sun on your coronation day, the architect explains, pointing to the precisely calculated orientations. You study the plans carefully. Such monuments are not just displays of royal ego, they are essential expressions of cosmic order. These structures reflect the divine, forging harmony between mortals and deities. After several design refinements, you grant your assent. Work commences instantly. Another phase in your vast plan for an empire uniting Africa and the Mediterranean. As dusk falls, a golden light bathes your city, yet your tasks remain unfinished. A final war council awaits where you will review the detailed plans for your northern campaign. Your generals are gathered in a secure chamber, guarded against spies listening to your military strategies. Maps are spread across a large stone table, showing your forces' positions and potential Egyptian resistance locations. Your commander explains, "We will sail north with the main force, tracing the course of the Nile. Smaller units will advance overland to secure vital positions. Intelligence indicates the Egyptian forces are fragmented and unprepared for a unified assault." You intently listen, probing with specific questions regarding supply routes, the allegiance of potential allies within the Egyptian nobility, and plans for unforeseen resistance. Your commanders recognize your strategic acumen. You are not merely a figurehead, but an actual military leader. The meeting ends with a solemn rite. Each commander drinks from a common cup, signifying their unified purpose and shared destiny. They swear vows of allegiance, committing to follow you to victory or death. For Amun-Ra and the divine Pharaoh, they declare together, their voices reverberating off the stone walls. As the war council breaks up, you are finally able to retreat to your private chambers. Attendants remove your heavy crown and ceremonial garments, replacing them with lighter robes for the evening. They bring food, a lavish meal of roasted meats, fresh fruits, bread and wine, all tested by tasters before reaching your table. Despite the luxury, you eat moderately. A clear head is essential for the challenges ahead. As you dine, scribes read reports and historical texts to you. You must absorb this information before tomorrow's duties begin. As night fully envelops your palace, you experience a rare moment of solitude on your private balcony, gazing over your sleeping capital. In the distance, the Nile gleams silver in the moonlight, the very river that flows through Egypt, the land you are soon to claim. You ponder the weight of history weighing upon you. For centuries, Egypt reigned over Nubia. Now you will reverse that dynamic, leading a Nubian dynasty to rule a unified empire. It is a moment that will be remembered for millennia, though not always with full accuracy. Future civilizations may overlook that your kingdom possessed traditions, writing systems, and an impressive civilization independent of Egyptian influence, much as Egypt itself was. But you do not yet know this. As you prepare for sleep, ritual prayers are spoken and protective amulets are placed beside your bed. Even your rest is steeped in ceremony and divine significance. Closing your eyes, you know that tomorrow will bring another day of relentless duties, complex decisions, and preparations for the campaign that will make you the first Nubian pharaoh of Egypt's 25th dynasty. A remarkable reversal of the power dynamic between two ancient civilizations. Your final thought before sleep might be that the hardest part of being a Nubian pharaoh isn't the physical demands or rituals, but the weight of destiny. You stand at a pivotal historical moment, and your decisions will resonate through the ages. The soft whisper of the night breeze through the palm trees outside your window slowly fades as sleep takes hold. Tomorrow your quest to alter history resumes. Morning arrives swiftly, as it always does in the desert. The first sunlight streams through your palace chamber's narrow window, and before you can savor the peace, your attendants arrive. Another demanding day begins, as Pharaoh pie commences. Today is an exception, however. Today initiates your historic northern campaign, the invasion of Egypt. Your armies are assembled, your ships are ready, and the omens favor you. It is time to alter history. You rise and perform the same elaborate mourning rites as ever: purification with sacred water, anointing with oils, dressing in royal vestments. But today, your attendants add something unique: armor and weapons befitting a warrior king. A finely wrought bronze breastplate, scaled and sewn onto leather, is laid atop your royal attire. Your sword, its hilt adorned with gold and ivory, is ceremonially offered to you. The high priest bows deeply, beseeching Ammon to guide your blade. Stepping from your palace, you survey your assembled forces. The sight is truly magnificent, with thousands of warriors stretching as far as the eye can follow. The renowned Nubian archers constitute the elite units, wielding powerful bows nearly as tall as a man. These celebrated archers are dreaded across the ancient world for their precision and the immense power of their arrows. They can pierce armor from seemingly impossible ranges. The soldiers have prepared themselves both spiritually and militarily. Many have undergone purification in the Nile, adhering to ancient customs. They wear amulets for divine safeguarding and have adorned their bodies with symbols sacred to various deities. Some regiments bear standards crowned with divine emblems: the falcon of Horus, the ram's head of a moon. Great One, your general approaches. The fleet awaits your command. You nod and make your way to the river, where a fleet of ships is ready to transport your army northward. Your royal barge is a marvel of craftsmanship, its hull painted with protective eyes to guide it safely through the cataracts, its cabin decorated with gold and precious materials. As you board, musicians play triumphant melodies on flutes and drums. Priests offer incense and chant prayers for a successful campaign. The mood is a blend of solemn resolve and religious zeal. This is not simply a military victory, it is a divine mandate to reinstate proper order and worship to a land plunged into disorder. With a fanfare of trumpets, the fleet sets sail downstream. The Nile will guide you north toward destiny. First, you must navigate the difficult cataracts, river sections where rocky outcrops form dangerous rapids. Even skilled Nubian sailors find these passages perilous. As your fleet nears the first cataract, the crew immediately mobilizes. Some vessels require partial unloading and dragging through shallow channels. Others must steer through narrow gaps between jagged rocks, where a lapse in focus could result in ruin. From your royal barge, you observe your captain's remarkable skill as they navigate the turbulent waters. Your advisor remarks that the Egyptians believe these cataracts shield them from southern invasion, convinced no large army could successfully pass through them. You smile faintly, anticipating their surprise. Days unfold as your fleet proceeds north, and the landscape gradually shifts. The narrow, fertile strip along the Nile widens. Settlements are increasing. You are entering Upper Egypt. The initial test of your campaign is at Elephantine, the historical border between Nubia and Egypt. A small contingent of Egyptian soldiers has established defenses there. They were unprepared for an army of your magnitude, yet they hold their position, faithful to their local ruler. While you could easily crush them with your superior numbers, you opt for diplomacy instead. This will define your conquest strategy. Tell this to your herald. I come not to destroy, but to restore Mayat divine order. Those who recognize me as Amun's chosen will be honored. Those who resist will face consequences. The garrison commander requested time to consult his superiors. You grant this reasonable request, demonstrating restraint that impresses even your generals. By the following morning, the Elephantine garrison submitted to your authority. Your initial victories were achieved without bloodshed. This pattern continues as you advance into Egyptian territory. Some cities surrender immediately upon witnessing your overwhelming force. Others demand demonstrations of your military might before yielding. You treat those who submit with respect, permitting local officials to keep their posts if they swear loyalty to you. But those who stubbornly resist face the full might of your army. Among the thieves, the spiritual capital of Egypt, you encounter a more complex situation. The city is controlled by priests of Amun who have grown concerned about the diminishing respect for traditional religion shown by the competing princes of northern Egypt. You send emissaries to the high priest of Amun at Karnak, explaining that you arrive as a champion of proper worship and divine order. This message appeals to the priests who have heard of your devotion to the moon and your magnificent temple construction at Napata. The high priest himself comes to meet your ship as it docks at Thebes. He bows, showing genuine respect rather than the prostration expected of your Nubian subjects. The oracle has spoken. He informs you that Ammon welcomes his son from the south. This religious endorsement may prove more valuable than a military victory. With the endorsement of the Karak priests, your legitimacy as a potential ruler of Egypt is greatly increased. You present extravagant offerings at the Temple of the Moon, showcasing your devotion and strengthening your claim as the god's chosen representative. For several days you stay in Thebes, engaging in religious rites and conversing with local nobles. The city's inhabitants observe you with interest. Many have never seen a Nubian in person, much less one asserting pharaonic authority. You are aware of their scrutiny and ensure that every public appearance reflects both your regal presence and reverence for Egyptian traditions. One of your Nubian commanders dryly observes their surprise that you are civilized. You reply that they will soon realize our civilization is as ancient and sophisticated as their own. With Thebes secured through diplomacy and religious alignment, you continue northward. The next major challenge is at Hermopolis, a significant city ruled by Prince Namlot. Unlike the priests of Thebes, Namlot will not surrender his authority without a fight. The siege of Hermopolis tests your military leadership. For days, your forces surround the city, cutting off supplies while your engineers prepare siege equipment. Your archers keep the defenders pinned down, unable to effectively man their walls. Finally, accepting defeat, Namlot dispatches a messenger seeking terms. You enter the captured city with restraint, ensuring your soldiers do not loot or harm civilians. This clemency leaves a strong impression. You demonstrate that your rule will foster stability, not devastation. In Namlot's palace, you find an impressive collection of horses. You have always held a special affection for these animals, viewing them as noble creatures deserving of respect. Upon learning that Namlot's horses suffered neglect during the siege, lacking adequate water and food, you are genuinely angered, one of the few times your royal composure breaks. You failed to care for these innocent animals. You demand this from Namlot, revealing a character flaw more significant than your military resistance. You immediately order your own grooms to tend to the horses and record this incident in the victory stele you will later commission. An unusual detail betrays your personal values within the grand political narrative. As your campaign advances northward, news of your approach and your policy of mercy toward those who submit spreads. Several more cities surrender without resistance. Yet the greatest challenge remains. Memphis, the ancient administrative capital governed by a coalition of northern princes, led by a ruler named Teen, is heavily fortified with thick, well-maintained walls. Its location on the Nile is strategically advantageous. A frontal assault would be costly, perhaps impossible, but you have developed a reputation for clever strategy as well as military might. Under cover of darkness, you send a portion of your fleet to approach the city from an unexpected direction. At dawn, your main force begins what appears to be a direct assault on the main gates, but this is merely a diversion. While the defenders focus on repelling this assault, your ships land troops in a less protected part of the city. The battle for Memphis is intense yet short. Your forces break through the walls and combat ignites in the streets. You have issued strict orders to refrain from damaging temples and to spare civilians, but the defending soldiers show no such clemency. By noon, the city's defenders had either fallen or surrendered, and you made your triumphal entry into one of Egypt's most ancient and revered cities. Standing in the palace at Memphis, surrounded by the symbols of Egyptian royal power, you had achieved what seemed impossible, a Nubian king controlling Egypt's administrative center. But you know that military conquest is only the prelude to the real test, governing this immense territory and gaining the people's acceptance. The following days are consumed by political maneuvering. You consult local officials, priests, and nobles, weighing whom to trust within your nascent administration. You make sacrifices at Memphis's temples, especially to Ptah, the city's patron deity. Every public action is carefully calculated to solidify your legitimacy as pharaoh. Some northern princes, including Tefan, have fled instead of confronting your advancing army. You could pursue them, but you made a surprising choice. You sent messengers offering reconciliation if they submit to your authority. You will allow them to retain control of their territories as vassals, provided they swear loyalty to you as pharaoh. Is this wise, divine one? Questions one of your generals. These men will remain threats as long as they live. You may concede, but my aim is not to obliterate Egypt's rule, but to establish it under legitimate divine authority. Should they recognize me as their rightful sovereign, I will endorse their local administration. This pragmatic strategy is uncommon for conquering monarchs of this age and demonstrates your grasp that Egypt's administrative framework is too intricate for mere replacement by your appointees. It is wiser to integrate the existing system under your supreme rule than to entirely dismantle it. Remarkably, most princes assent to your terms, swearing oaths of loyalty. Teen, too proud to appear personally, sends tribute and a written oath. You accept this compromise, showing both strength and flexibility. With Egypt now nominally unified under your reign, you face a new challenge: how to govern this immense territory while retaining your power base in Nubia. The distance between Memphis and Napata is vast. Across the 1,000 miles of the winding Nile, no single ruler can be physically present throughout the expanse. You will devise a system of governance that will define the Kushite rule of Egypt. You will personally travel between key centers, experiencing both Egypt and Nubia. Trusted family members and officials will act as your representatives in various regions. Egyptian administrative structures will largely persist, but now operate under your authority. At Memphis, you commission a victory stele, a stone monument inscribed with the story of your conquest. Written in hieroglyphics, it details your campaign, emphasizes your piety toward Amun and other gods, and establishes your legitimacy as pharaoh. This victory stela, as historians will later call it, becomes one of the most important historical documents of your reign. With the political situation in Egypt stabilized, you make a decision that surprises many of your commanders. Instead of staying in Egypt to cement your personal authority, you declare your intent to return to Napata, your original capital in Nubia. You explain that though the conquest is finished, our homeland needs the pharaoh's presence. My nephew Shebaka will stay in Memphis as my representative. This choice reveals much about your view of kingship. Unlike many conquerors who forsake their origins for the wealth and prestige of new lands, you retain a deep bond with your Nubian homeland. Your identity remains tied to Kush even as you assume the role of Egyptian pharaoh. Before leaving, you visit the ancient pyramid complexes at Giza and Saqqara. Standing in the shadow of these monumental structures, built nearly 2 millennia before your era, you are struck by their grandeur and spiritual importance. These visits will shape your future choice to restore pyramid construction for royal burials, a practice the Egyptians abandoned centuries ago, yet which will define your dynasty. The return to Napata is a long and victorious one. Celebrations greet you in every major city along the Nile. Your conquest has established stability after decades of fragmentation, and many ordinary Egyptians embrace this new order, irrespective of its foreign origins. Upon returning to Napata, you immediately visited the great temple of Amun at the base of Jebel Barkal, the sacred mountain. There, through an elaborate ceremony, you dedicated the spoils of your Egyptian campaign: golden statues, precious jewelry, rare materials, and other valuables seized from the conquered lands. This action solidified your image as a pious king sharing his success with the gods. In the ensuing years, you launched an ambitious building program in both Egypt and Nubia. Temples are restored, expanded, and newly built. Palaces and administrative buildings rise in key cities. This construction serves multiple functions, honoring the gods, providing employment for thousands, and creating visible symbols of your dynasty's power and legitimacy. Particularly significant is your work at the Temple of Amun at Jebel Barkal, where you expand this already impressive complex by adding new sanctuaries and monumental gateways. The temple serves as the spiritual core of your kingdom, a sacred place merging Egyptian religious customs with Nubian identity. You also introduce an innovation that will become a hallmark of your dynasty: royal pyramids. Though smaller than those at Giza, These steep-sided structures built at Eluru near Enpata establish a clear visual connection between your Kushite kingdom and ancient Egyptian traditions. Ruling two lands brings perpetual challenges. You must honor and sustain the separate cultural traditions of Egypt and Nubia while cultivating unity. You must preserve religious authority in both spheres. Furthermore, you must constantly ward off potential revolts or outside dangers. Your days are governed by ceaseless obligation. Each morning commences with purification rites and prayers, followed by assemblies with officials from all parts of your domain. As a divine king, you oversee agricultural output, tax collection, military readiness, and foreign relations. You personally rule on significant legal cases, establishing precedents for your officials in routine matters. Religious ceremonies consume much of your time, as you must maintain proper divine relationships through regular offerings and festival participation. The calendar is marked by sacred days demanding your presence at various temples. Building projects require your attention. You examine architectural plans, inspect construction sites, and decide on materials, designs, and inscriptions. These structures will endure for millennia. They must perfectly reflect your royal ideology and religious devotion. Even after conquering Egypt, you never fully relinquish Nubian cultural elements. Your royal iconography merges Egyptian and Kushite features. You are depicted wearing the double crown of Egypt alongside distinct Nubian royal symbols. In official settings, you utilize both Egyptian hieroglyphics and Miawitic script, the writing system of your Nubian homeland. This cultural duality permeates your personal life. Your primary consorts originate from noble Nubian families, preserving your link to the elite of your homeland. Simultaneously, you forge marriage alliances with Egyptian noble houses, thereby tethering them to your dynasty through familial bonds. Your offspring are educated in dual cultures. They study Egyptian religious texts and administrative methods while preserving Nubian customs and language. This bicultural upbringing equips them to govern an empire encompassing varied peoples and territories. Time elapses, and you start to feel the burden of aging and duty. You accomplished the seemingly impossible, establishing a Nubian dynasty that governs Egypt through religious legitimacy and administrative skill, not just force. You are recognized as a true pharaoh, your name inscribed in official king lists alongside native Egyptian rulers. As your reign nears its end, you meticulously arrange for succession. Your nephew Shebaka, who has demonstrated his capability as your representative in Memphis, is set to assume the throne after you. To maintain the stability you've worked so hard to establish, the transition must be smooth. In your final years, you commission your tomb, a pyramid at El Kuru that will house your mummified remains and treasures for the afterlife. The burial chamber is adorned with scenes depicting you in the company of gods, particularly Amun-Ra, to whom you have shown such devotion throughout your life. When death arrives, you face it with the same dignity that defined your reign. Your body is subjected to the elaborate Egyptian mummification process, preserved for eternity. You are interred honorably in your pyramid tomb, surrounded by offerings and protective amulets. Your legacy is secured. You established a dynasty that governed Egypt for nearly a century, ushering in an era of stability, religious revival, and cultural flourishing. Future generations will remember you as Paiti or Pianki, the first of the Black Pharaohs, the Nubian king who conquered and ruled Egypt with wisdom and piety. Though the pharaoh's death signals an end, it also begins the continuation of the remarkable Kushite 25th dynasty, a story far from finished. For now, your successor, Shebaka, assumes the double crown, facing the same immense challenges you once faced. Balancing two cultures, upholding divine legitimacy, and safeguarding a sprawling empire against internal dissent and external dangers. Imagine now that you are Shebaka, nephew of the great pharaoh and the new ruler of the 25th dynasty. The burden of the double crown weighs heavily upon you as you consider the immense empire you have inherited, extending from Nubia to the Mediterranean Sea. Your uncle conquered Egypt, solidifying Nubian rule and gaining acceptance from both Egyptians and your homeland Nubians is perhaps the more challenging task. Morning sunlight streams through your palace columns in Memphis. Unlike your uncle, who returned to Napata following the conquest, you have chosen to make your primary residence here, Egypt's traditional administrative capital. This is a strategic decision to rule Egypt effectively. You must be at its heart. Your morning routines mirror those of your uncle, yet subtly diverge due to your personal religious focus. Known for your deep commitment to ancient traditions, you view yourself as a restorer of Egypt's classical religious practices. This reverence for tradition will ultimately define your reign. As attendants dress you in the pharaoh's regalia, you mentally prepare for the day's most important event, the unveiling of what future historians will call the Shabaka stone, which you know only as a sacred text commissioned for eternity. Is the temple ready, you ask your chief priest. Yes, divine one, he replies with a deep bow. The stone has been placed in the temple of Ptah as you commanded. This project has been close to your heart. To ensure the eternal survival of an ancient religious text, which was deteriorating on old papyrus, you ordered it carved into black basalt. The text details the mighty theology, explaining how the god Ptah created the world through his understanding and speech. This profound theological document connects creation itself to Memphis, the city where you now rule. What you cannot possibly know is that this stone will endure long after your dynasty collapses. Nearly 2,500 years later, European archaeologists will discover it, making it one of the most vital sources for understanding ancient Egyptian religious thought. Your act of preservation will prove more enduring than the military conquests that secured your family's rule. Following a light breakfast of bread, dates and watered wine, you then proceed to the temple for the dedication ceremony. Your passage through Memphis is an elaborate spectacle. Guards clear the route, musicians play solemn tunes, and priests bear sacred symbols. The populace prostrates themselves as you move, a deity walking among them. The Temple of Ptah stands as one of Memphis's most ancient and venerated sanctuaries. Within, the cool gloom offers respite from the day's rising heat. Incense smoke drifts toward the ceiling as priests chant prayers. The stone you commissioned dominates the main hall, its polished black surface gleaming under the oil lamps. The dedication ceremony is lengthy and intricate, featuring numerous offerings and recitations. You personally read sections of the sacred text aloud, your voice reverberating through the temple chambers. In preserving this ancient wisdom, you make a powerful assertion of your reign. Though perhaps Nubian by birth, you are the true custodian of Egyptian tradition. Following the ceremony, you return to the palace to attend to the daily governance. Your method of rule diverges slightly from your uncle's. While Pa was a warrior king who achieved dominion through military force, you are a scholar king dedicated to cultural and religious revival. Both methods are valid ways to secure your dynasty's standing. Your officials bring reports from across the realm. Tax revenue is collected effectively, securing the wealth required for your construction projects and the maintenance of the army. The Nile flood proved favorable this year, promising good harvests. Local administrators, predominantly Egyptians whom you have retained in their posts, report general peace and adherence to your rule. However, challenges persist. A noble from the Delta region is inciting dissent, questioning the legitimacy of a Nubian as pharaoh. You must bring him to Memphis, command, after careful thought, not by force, but with honor. I will prove my devotion to Egyptian traditions over his own. This method reflects your rule, prioritizing cultural authority over brute force. You know the Kushite dynasty must gain acceptance by demonstrating its commitment to Egyptian values, especially religious ones. Later that day, you met with the architects managing your building projects. Under your guidance, temples across Egypt were being restored and expanded. You focused especially on the temple complexes at Karach and Luxor in Thebes, the spiritual core of Egypt. The new hypostyle hall at Karach would be finished before the next flood, the chief architect assured you, presenting detailed plans drawn on papyrus. You nodded in approval. These colossal construction endeavors fulfill several functions. They venerate the deities, supply employment for numerous laborers, and establish tangible symbols of your dynasty's authority and devotion. The unique Kushite architectural details you have integrated, specific column designs and ornamental features, will immortalize these structures as legacies of your rule for ages. As twilight descends, you are also recalled to another vital facet of Pharaonic obligation, domestic matters. Your sister Amonis has been appointed as the divine consort of Ammon in Thebes, a role of great religious and political significance. She governs Upper Egypt on your behalf through this sacred office. A messenger has arrived bearing her reports and requests. Traditionally, the wife of the god Amun was a celibate priestess who married the god symbolically, thereby managing his vast temple lands and riches. By appointing your sister to this role, you have placed a loyal family member in charge of one of Egypt's most powerful institutions. This is a strategy that started with your uncle Pa and persists under your reign. You carefully examine Amun's reports, which detail religious ceremonies, administrative decisions, and political situations requiring your knowledge. Her position ensures that thieves, always a potential threat, remain firmly under Kushite control. As night descends, you finally share a more private meal with your family. Your Nubian wife, Tibakan Aman, your children, and close relatives serving in your administration. Here, the formality of court life eases. Conversations shift between the Egyptian language used for official matters and your native Nubian tongue. Your children grow up between two cultures, educated in both Egyptian and Nubian traditions. They embody the bicultural future you foresee for your lineage. Your eldest son, Shibitku, observes and learns from you, knowing he will likely inherit the double crown someday. Later, in the seclusion of your rooms, you examine a diplomatic message from Assyria, the empire growing from Mesopotamia. Their king Sargon II sends formal salutations, yet there is an underlying tension. Assyrian influence is expanding in the Levant, the eastern Mediterranean region acting as a buffer between your kingdom and theirs. You must watch them closely, you tell your foreign affairs advisor. For now, maintain friendly relations, but bolster our presence in the eastern delta and Sinai. This threat to Syria will escalate in the coming years, ultimately becoming the greatest external challenge to Kushite rule in Egypt. For now, it remains distant, something to monitor rather than fear. Before sleeping, you perform private devotions, praying to Amun-Ra and other deities for guidance and protection. The religious sincerity of the Kushite pharaohs is noteworthy. Your dynasty's legitimacy rests heavily on your role as divine intermediaries chosen by Amun to restore proper worship and cosmic order. As you drift towards sleep, you reflect on your accomplishments and the challenges ahead. Your rule ushered in stability and a religious revival. You solidified Kushite legitimacy by embracing Egyptian traditions while preserving your unique Nubian identity. The magnificent Black Pharaoh dynasty, initiated by your uncle Pa, continues to thrive under your direction. As time passes, you too must succumb to mortality. Upon your death, you will be interred with full Egyptian royal honors in a pyramid tomb at Eluru in your Nubian homeland. Following the tradition set by Pa, his nephew Shobku succeeds him as the third Kushite pharaoh of Egypt's 25th dynasty. Although Shebku's reign was brief, he continued the patterns established by You and Payet, maintaining Kushite control over Egypt, supporting religious institutions, and closely monitoring the growing Assyrian threat to the northeast. However, it is his successor who will ultimately define the dynasty in both glory and tragedy. As Tahara, the fourth ruler of the Kushite dynasty, I ascended the throne as a young man, brimming with energy and ambition. My predecessors had successfully conquered Egypt and established Kushite dominion. My aim was to elevate this dynasty to unprecedented heights. My coronation, held at Tanis in the Egyptian delta, symbolized my complete control over all of Egypt, stretching from its northernmost territories to the depths of Nubia in the south. The crown signifies not merely a political office, but a divine mandate. You are now the living Horus, the intermediary between deities and mortals, tasked with upholding cosmic order. Your early reign actualizes your ambitions, establishing you as the foremost architect of the Kushite dynasty, commissioning temples, palaces, and monuments across Egypt and Nubia. Your name will be recorded on columns and statues, inscribed from the delta to the fourth cataract of the Nile, lasting for millennia. At Karash, you will build a magnificent colonnade in the temple court, with massive columns topped by open papyrus capitals. Though time may leave only one of these columns standing, it will remain an impressive monument to your architectural ambition. Towering nearly 70 feet, adorned with exquisite relief carvings. At Jebel Barkol in your Nubian homeland, you expanded the sacred complex dedicated to Amun. The temple of Mut, consort of Amun, is carved directly into the rock face of the sacred mountain. Inside, reliefs depict you making offerings to the gods, legitimizing your rule through divine approval. Your structure also incorporates practical works. You commission new irrigation systems, boosting agricultural output. Wells are excavated in deserts to facilitate trade routes. These practical enhancements improve the lives of commoners and fortify your economic and military standing. One morning, while reviewing plans for a new temple at Kawa in Nubia, a messenger arrives with alarming news from the northeast. Divine one, he reports after prostrating himself. Assyrian forces have invaded the Levant in unprecedented numbers. Several city-states paying tribute to Egypt have appealed for our protection. This is the moment external politics will dominate your reign. The Assyrian Empire, based in Mesopotamia, has expanded westward for decades under King Hadon. They pose a direct threat to Egyptian interests and ultimately to Egypt itself. You summon your military commanders and advisors for an emergency council. Maps display the Levantine coastal regions and the advancing Assyrian positions. For centuries, Egypt has viewed this area as part of its sphere of influence, a buffer guarding its northeastern frontier. You declare we must support our vassals, and after hearing various opinions, prepare the army to march eastward. This decision initiates events that will define the latter part of your reign. The initial engagement with Assyrian forces proceeds successfully. Your army successfully pushes them back, safeguarding Egyptian allied cities in the Levant. You erect victory monuments celebrating this triumph, unaware that it is fleeting. The complexities of international politics now consume much of your attention. You establish alliances with various powers who share fears of Assyrian expansion. A pivotal partnership among these is with King Hezekiah of Judah, who stands against Assyrian rule. This alliance is inscribed in religious texts that will endure for millennia. The Hebrew Bible chronicles how Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, Tirhakah, assisted Judah against the Assyrian king Sennacherib during his siege of Jerusalem. The biblical account details how the Assyrian forces mysteriously withdrew following your intervention, marking a major diplomatic and military triumph for your dynasty. Nevertheless, the Assyrian threat persists and intensifies. Their technological and military superiority, iron weaponry, advanced siege gear, and sheer numbers render them a formidable foe. Your kingdoms of Egypt and Kush, despite their wealth and sophistication, struggle to counter these military innovations. In 671 BC, disaster strikes. Esarhaddon launches a massive invasion of Egypt. Though your forces fight bravely, they are overwhelmed by the Assyrian war machine. Memphis falls, forcing you to retreat southward to Thebes. For the first time, the Kushite control of Egypt faces serious threat. These subsequent months are among the most challenging of your reign. From the dispossessed, you reorganize your forces and devise a counterattack. Upon learning that Esarhaddon has withdrawn most of his army to handle other affairs, you grasp the opportunity. A swift advance north enables you to reclaim Memphis and re-establish Kushite authority over much of Egypt. This triumph, however, proves fleeting. In 669 BCE, Esarhaddon marches on Egypt once more. Although he dies during the campaign, his son Ashurbanipal continues the invasion. The Assyrian forces are overwhelming, and this time they push beyond Memphis to Thebes itself. The capture and plundering of Thebes in 663 BCE marks a traumatic moment in Egyptian history. This great religious center, which had stood for centuries, is now in foreign hands. The Assyrians plundered the temples and palaces, seizing countless treasures, notably 2 massive obelisks destined for Nineveh. You were compelled to retreat to your Nubian homeland, terminating Kushite control over Egypt. After nearly a century of rule, the 25th dynasty's dominion over both lands concluded. Despite this defeat, you preserved your royal dignity and religious authority. In Napata and across Nubia, you remain Pharaoh, the divine king chosen by Amun. Your final years concentrate on fortifying your Nubian kingdom and safeguarding your dynasty's legacy. You continue building projects in Nubia, notably at Nuri, where you establish a new royal cemetery. Your pyramid there, larger than those of your predecessors, will serve as your final resting place. Though Egypt was lost, you remain remembered as one of the greatest kings of the 25th dynasty. Your architectural feats, military actions, and cultural support have left a lasting impact on both Egyptian and Nubian history. The religious resurgence you and your predecessors promoted shaped Egyptian culture long after Kushite rule ceased. Upon your death, you were interred with proper ceremony in your pyramid at Nuri. Your successor, Tantamani, will make a final effort to regain Kushite control in Egypt, briefly seizing Memphis before being ultimately expelled by the Assyrians and their Egyptian allies. The 25th dynasty's reign over Egypt has concluded, yet its influence remains. For nearly a century, Nubian kings held the title of pharaohs, fostering stability, religious revival, and cultural growth. Following a period of fragmentation, they ruled not as foreign occupiers, but as legitimate pharaohs, recognized within the ancient Egyptian tradition. The unique artistic style established during your dynasty, mixing Egyptian and Nubian elements, remains influential in creative expression across both regions. The religious texts you preserved, especially the theology on the Shabaka stone, ensure ancient wisdom endures for future generations, and the pyramids you constructed in Nubia serve as lasting symbols of your dynasty's power and cultural refinement. Crucially, your dynasty proves that the relationship between Egypt and Nubia was never merely one of Egyptian dominance. These two ancient African civilizations profoundly influenced each other over millennia, shifting between rivalry and partnership, particularly during your era as Nubian rulers of Egypt. Far from being a peripheral force in Egypt's shadow, your Kushite kingdom demonstrated sophisticated traditions capable of resisting Egyptian influence, conquering, and ruling Egypt itself. The narrative of the Black Pharaohs powerfully underscores Africa's intricate history and the advanced civilizations it fostered prior to European colonization. Your legacy endures in monuments that remain, texts that are still examined, and the lasting redefinition of the connection between two of Africa's most significant ancient societies. Having examined the grand political narratives of the Nubian pharaohs, let us move beyond the royal palaces and battlefields to uncover the existence of common people living under the rule of the Black Pharaohs. After all, empires are not solely defined by kings and conquests. They are constructed upon the daily lives, efforts, and beliefs of countless individuals whose names seldom feature in historical accounts. I am no longer a pharaoh, but a common inhabitant of the Kushite kingdom during the height of the 25th dynasty. The sun ascends above my mudbrick, dwelling in a small village by the Nile, situated between the 3rd and 4th cataracts in modern-day northern Sudan. This is the core of Kush, the mighty African kingdom that led its rulers north to conquer Egypt. My home is plain but cozy. Constructed from sun-dried mud bricks, the interior remains surprisingly cool despite the scorching external heat. Thick walls feature small, high windows designed to promote air circulation while minimizing direct sunlight. A flat roof, accessible by a ladder, functions as an outdoor sleeping area during the hottest months when the interior overheats at night. The floor is packed earth, swept clean daily, with reed mats used for daytime seating and nighttime bedding. Storage jars hold your household's valuable grain, safely shielded from rodents and insects. Clay oil lamps offer illumination after dusk, yet most pursuits adhere to the daylight cycle. When the first sunlight enters your doorway, you awaken to begin your day. If you are a farmer, as is most of this society, your schedule is governed by the seasons and the river's inundation when the Nile floods your fields. You might maintain irrigation channels or perform other tasks such as repairing tools and buildings. After the waters withdraw, leaving behind fertile silt, planting commences, back-breaking work of preparing the soil and sowing seeds. The Nubian agricultural system depends on both the Nile's natural flooding and increasingly advanced irrigation techniques. The sharduf, a simple yet effective device featuring a counterweight at one end of a pole and a bucket on the other, enables lifting river water to irrigate fields outside the natural flood zone. More intricate water-lifting systems powered by oxen extend arable land even further. Primary crops are sorghum and millet, ancient indigenous grains perfectly suited to the African climate, forming the basis of the Nubian diet. You also cultivate barley for brewing beer, various vegetables such as onions and cucumbers, and possibly fruit trees if you are fortunate enough to have a garden plot. If you are a woman in this household, your morning starts with food preparation. Using a stone grinding pallet, a technology unchanged for millennia, you grind sorghum or millet into flour for the day's bread. This physically demanding labor requires strength and stamina as you push the grinding stone back and forth across the base stone for an hour to yield enough flour for your family. The bread you create is not the raised loaves familiar to Egyptians, but rather flatter, denser cakes cooked on a clay griddle over an open fire. Occasionally, honey or dates may be added for special occasions, but most days it is the plain staple that supplies the majority of your family's calories. While the main meal is prepared, children are sent to collect water from the Nile or community wells. Water carriers balanced on their heads are common, with young girls learning this skill early. This water is used not only for drinking and cooking, but also for the ritual washing that precedes prayers in this increasingly religious culture. If your family has animals, such as goats, sheep, or chickens, they also require tending. Livestock symbolize wealth and food security within this agricultural society. Cattle are particularly valued, though ownership is usually restricted to the wealthier families. For typical households, smaller animals supply occasional meat, milk, and eggs to supplement the grain diet. By midday, the heat intensifies. If engaged in field work, one has already labored for several hours, possibly with neighbors in a shared labor setup. Agricultural labor frequently involves families collaborating during crucial planting and harvesting periods. The social structure of Nubian villages retains egalitarian principles despite the kingdom's high stratification. Village elders achieve many local decisions through consensus, though all ultimately answer to officials appointed by the pharaoh's administration. Land ownership exhibits complex patterns, with some plots held communally and others allocated to specific families. If you are not a farmer, you may be involved in numerous specialized crafts vital to Nubian society. Pottery production holds particular significance. Nubian ceramics are not merely functional objects, but works of art featuring distinctive decorative patterns that archaeologists can still recognize millennia later. The distinctive black-topped redware, achieved via a specialized firing method, is highly prized. Other essential crafts encompass weaving, basketry, leatherworking, and metallurgy. Goldworking is especially significant in the Kushite kingdom, which governs major gold-producing areas. This precious metal is not solely reserved for royal treasuries. It is found in jewelry across various social strata, though the quantity and quality differ markedly based on social standing. By noon, the sun is relentless. Work frequently halts during these peak heat hours as families seek shade for the main meal. This meal usually involves bread, beer, and perhaps a vegetable stew seasoned with local herbs and spices. Meat is typically saved for special events among most common families. The beer consumed bears little resemblance to modern varieties. It is thick, nourishing, and relatively low in alcohol, more a staple food than an intoxicant. It is consumed by everyone, including children, as it is often safer than water and supplies essential calories and nutrients. Work resumes in the slightly cooler late afternoon after the midday meal and rest. For children, this may involve formal education. Those from privileged families linked to the temple or administrative systems among the Kushite elite were literate in both Egyptian hieroglyphics and the indigenous Miawitic script, though the latter became more developed after the 25th dynasty. For the majority of children, however, education was practical rather than literary. They learned the skills required for adulthood by working alongside parents and other adults. Boys usually pursue their father's trades, whereas girls acquire domestic skills and crafts from their mothers and other women. As the day ends, community activities become more important. The village market may come alive in the cooler evenings as people trade goods, share news, and socialize. If you possess items to exchange, such as garden produce or handmade crafts, you can barter them for necessities your family requires. Although most daily trade occurs through barter, the Kushite kingdom employs specific standardized values for major transactions. Gold rings of defined weight function as currency among merchants and for taxes paid to royal officials. Furthermore, the pharaoh's authority is evident in remote villages through the regular collection of a share of one's harvest or output. Royal officials meticulously document each community's debts to local headmen who are tasked with ensuring proper payment. These taxes fund the court, temples, the military, and the extensive building projects defining the 25th dynasty. If you lived during the peak of Kushite power when they governed Egypt, you might occasionally witness these resources returning to your community through infrastructure, irrigation, grain storage, and temples. The Kushite pharaohs, especially Taharqa, were recognized for practical public works that aided common people alongside their grander architectural achievements. As evening nears, religious observances integrate into many household routines. While grand temple ceremonies are performed by professional priests, family worship occurs in homes and local shrines. Small figurines representing deities such as Amun-Ra, Isis, Hathor, and others from the Egyptian pantheon alongside indigenous Nubian gods like Adomak, the lion-headed warrior god, may hold a special place in your home. The religious practice of ordinary Nubians during this period is a fascinating synthesis. While royal ideology heavily focused on Amun-Ra, everyday spirituality incorporated a wider array of deities and practices. Some elements originated with the indigenous A group and C group cultures of prehistoric Nubia, while others reflected Egyptian influence from centuries of cultural exchange. Protective amulets are commonly worn, especially by children and pregnant women, who are thought to be particularly vulnerable to spiritual dangers. These might be simple clay or stone pendants inscribed with divine symbols, or more elaborate pieces made of chants. A ceramic material with a glassy surface is used if your family has means. After the evening meal, another round of bread with perhaps some dried fish, lentils, or vegetables is eaten. Families gather to socialize. Storytelling is a vital tradition where elders transmit historical and mythological narratives, thereby strengthening cultural identity and values. These tales frequently encompass the exploits of kings and gods, alongside trickster stories and moral fables that offer both entertainment and instruction. Music and dance also constitute another essential facet of community life. Simple instruments, including pottery or wood drums covered with animal skin, reed flutes, rattles, and stringed instruments like small harps, accompany songs and dances for ceremonial and recreational uses. Public performances often mark festivals, weddings, or other major community events. As the stars appear in the clear desert sky, village activities cease. Lacking artificial light, sleep patterns typically align with the natural cycle of daylight. During the hottest seasons, many people sleep on rooftops to catch evening breezes, spreading reed mats across flat mud brick surfaces with their entire families. This daily life cycle continues with seasonal variations. The agricultural calendar governs much of the year's rhythm, featuring intense activity during planting and harvest interspersed with less demanding seasons. Religious festivals signify major transitions, including the Nile flood, harvest, and astronomical events such as solstices. Living in large urban centers like Napata, rather than a rural village, significantly alters daily experience. Cities function as administrative, religious, and commercial hubs, fostering more specialized occupations and greater social stratification. Urban inhabitants might function as scribes in the royal administration, documenting tax revenues, cataloging temple assets, or composing correspondence. Others act as priests within the intricate temple complexes that served as Kushite spiritual hubs. Artisans in cities frequently created specialized luxury items for the wealthy, fine jewelry, ornate weapons, cosmetics, and elaborate furnishings. This arrangement made the social hierarchy more apparent in urban environments. Although rural villages preserve some egalitarian customs, cities feature sharp divisions among the royal court: nobility, priests, merchants, artisans, and laborers. These differences are evident in residences, attire, food, and resource access. The royal court occupies the highest position in this hierarchy. Life in the palace is governed by intricate protocols that manage everything from addressing the pharaoh to who is permitted to speak in royal councils. The monarch's daily life encompasses many ceremonies and religious rites, in addition to the practical work of ruling. High officials and nobles occupy the subsequent level, managing various facets of the realm's administration. Numerous positions are inherited from father to son, forming influential families whose wealth depends on royal goodwill. Their substantial residences, featuring multiple rooms around central courtyards, alongside their fine linen garments and gold jewelry, reflect their status. Priests form another elite group, particularly those serving in the main temples dedicated to Amun-Ra. Temple complexes operate almost as cities within cities, possessing their own economies, workshops, and administrative systems. Some priests serve temporarily on a rotating basis, whereas others occupy permanent roles demanding specialized knowledge of rituals and texts. Merchants and skilled artisans constitute a middle class, especially in cities situated along major trade routes. International trade delivers valuable commodities from Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Near East, including incense from Punt, Somalia, timber from Lebanon, copper from Sinai, exotic animals, and ivory from Central Africa. Controlling this trade generates wealth and influence for specific families and guilds. For urban laborers, including construction workers, porters, domestic servants, and others providing vital services, life is more difficult. Although not enslaved, and despite slavery existing in the Kushite kingdom for captured prisoners of war and their descendants, their economic security is entirely dependent on continued employment, leaving them vulnerable to illness or injury. Housing mirrors these social divisions. Elite residences boast multiple rooms surrounding courtyards with plastered and painted walls, decorative features, and distinct areas for various purposes. Middle-class homes are smaller, but also divided into specialized areas. The urban poor may reside in single-room dwellings in crowded neighborhoods, occasionally with extended families sharing cramped space. Clothing similarly indicates social standing. The elite frequently wear pleated, brightly bordered linen garments, complemented by gold jewelry such as heavy collars and bracelets. In contrast, ordinary people manage with simpler linen or cotton clothing and modest adornments of beads, faience, or copper. Children often remain mostly unclothed until puberty, a practical response to the heat. Personal appearance is carefully attended to across all social classes. Nubian hairstyles are elaborate and unique, featuring braided patterns that signify age, status, and regional identity. Both men and women apply oils to protect their skin from the intense sun and use cosmetics for both practical protection and beauty. Kohl, a dark mineral pigment, is used to line the eyes to reduce glare and prevent infections, while also being aesthetically appealing. Roles for women in Kushite society varied according to their social class. Elite women, especially those linked to the royal family or religious offices, held considerable influence. The institution of the god's wife of Amun, controlled by Kushite princesses during the 25th dynasty, represented one of the highest status positions for women in the ancient world, combining religious authority and significant political power. Women typically managed households, participated in agricultural labor, and often practiced specialized crafts such as pottery and textile production. Evidence suggests that Nubian society afforded women greater autonomy than contemporary Egyptian culture, especially concerning legal issues like property ownership. Female figures in Kushite art display a broader array of active roles than their Egyptian counterparts. Health and medicine in this society reflected both practical knowledge and religious beliefs. Herbal remedies employed by Nubian healers possessed genuinely effective compounds, whereas other treatments depend more on spiritual intervention. Life expectancy is low by modern standards, perhaps 30 or 40 years on average, coupled with high infant mortality and considerable risks during childbirth for women. Now consider the shifts that transpired when the Kushite pharaohs relinquished control of Egypt following the Assyrian invasions. The kingdom integrates its Nubian heartland by permanently establishing the royal court in Napata. Although this is a political decline, daily life persists, much as before, for ordinary people in the Nubian territories. The lack of Egyptian resources necessitates adjustments. Without access to certain Egyptian luxury goods, local alternatives are developed. Temple and palace architecture evolved to include more indigenous elements alongside the Egyptian styles dominant during the 25th dynasty. Religion also subtly transformed. While Amun-Ra remained the main deity, indigenous Nubian gods like the Pedmak gained prominence. Temples built after the retreat from Egypt featured these distinctly Nubian deities more prominently, yet always within an Egyptian religious framework. The kingdom's center of gravity shifted southward. By around 300 BCE, the royal capital moved from Napata to Meroe, further south along the Nile, This transition marks the shift from the Nepitan period to the Meoitic period of Kushite history. Meo emerged as a major iron-producing center, featuring numerous furnaces processing ore from nearby sources. This technological specialization grants economic power, enabling the kingdom to preserve its independence, even after Egypt's loss. The distinctive steep-sided Nubian pyramids continue to be constructed for rulers and elites in areas near Meroe instead of Eluru or Nuri. The Meoitic period marks the complete evolution of the indigenous writing system. The Meoitic script, clearly inspired by Egyptian hieroglyphics, represents the Kushite language, which is entirely distinct from Egyptian. Official inscriptions now appear in both hieroglyphics and Meoitic, reflecting the kingdom's dual cultural heritage. Trade routes have shifted somewhat, emphasizing connections to Central Africa and the Red Sea over the Mediterranean. Exotic goods still flow through the kingdom, including items from as far away as India and China that arrive via Red Sea ports and overland routes. During these transitions, certain distinctive aspects of Kushite culture persist. The famous Nubian archers maintain their reputation for excellence, serving as the kingdom's military backbone, while pottery styles continue to feature the characteristic decorative patterns that identify them as distinctly Nubian. Religious syncretism, the blending of Egyptian and indigenous traditions, is a defining cultural feature. Most significantly, the memory of the 25th dynasty, when Kushite kings ruled as pharaohs of Egypt, continues to provide ideological legitimacy for the royal line. Even centuries after leaving Egypt, Kushite rulers maintain the claim to be rightful heirs to this ancient tradition by portraying themselves with the double crown and other symbols of Egyptian kingship. For most people, these grand political stories may seem far removed from everyday worries about farming, family, and the local community. However, the cultural pride linked to the Black Pharaoh era likely spreads across all levels of society, strengthening a feeling of Kushite identity and historical significance that helps the kingdom endure through various difficulties. This remarkable civilization persisted for centuries after the 25th dynasty concluded, with the kingdom of Kush remaining independent until approximately the 4th century CE. Its decline was caused by shifting trade patterns, resource depletion, and pressure from the rising kingdom of Aksum in Ethiopia. Nevertheless, the legacy of Kush, especially the extraordinary era when Nubian kings ruled as Egypt's 25th dynasty, endures far beyond the kingdom's political existence. Ongoing archaeological findings expose the sophistication of this African civilization, disputing previous historical accounts that minimized Nubia's importance or depicted it only as an adjunct to Egypt. The history of the Black Pharaohs and their kingdom powerfully underscores Africa's intricate pre-colonial past. Nubia and its 25th dynasty, characterized by sophisticated states with monumental architecture, unique artistic traditions, intricate religious systems, and extensive trade networks, are central to the development of ancient civilization, far from being peripheral to world history. As our exploration of the Nubian Black Pharaohs concludes, let's examine how this remarkable historical chapter was nearly overlooked, then rediscovered, and its significance for understanding ancient Africa and world history today. The way the Black Pharaohs' legacy endured through millennia is as captivating as their rule itself. Now picture yourself in the scorching desert of northern Sudan. In 1842, as European explorer Carl Richard Lepsius surveyed the ruins, he found them breathtaking: dozens of steep-sided pyramids, temples adorned with hieroglyphic columns, and statues of forgotten kings. Despite their grandeur, these monuments were largely unknown to Europe and America. For centuries, Western historical understanding had focused almost exclusively on Greece, Rome, and Egypt, largely neglecting the sophisticated civilizations that thrived in Nubia. When Nubia was mentioned, it was typically depicted as a primitive cultural backwater, significant only as Egypt's source of gold and slaves. This narrative proved deeply flawed as Lepsius and other early archaeologists began to discover. The pyramids found at Eluru, Nuri, and Meroe were not mere imitations of Egyptian monuments, but evidence of a distinct and sophisticated civilization with its own traditions and achievements. The inscriptions they documented revealed kings and queens who not only ruled Nubia, but had conquered and governed Egypt as the 25th dynasty. Why was this history so thoroughly forgotten in Western accounts? Part of the answer lies in ancient politics. When the Assyrians drove the Kushite rulers from Egypt, they attempted to erase evidence of the 25th dynasty by destroying statues and monuments. Later, the Egyptian pharaohs of the 26th dynasty continued this practice, deliberately damaging or exploiting Kushite monuments and inscriptions. However, a deeper cause lies in modern prejudices. When European scholars began systematically studying ancient Egypt in the 18th and 19th centuries, many were uneasy with evidence of sophisticated black African civilizations that had conquered and ruled Egypt. These findings refuted the racial theories underpinning European colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. As a prominent 19th-century scholar noted, when faced with evidence of Nubian achievements, I could not see the depicted people as the Negro type, asserting that the so-called Ethiopian dynasty was Hamitic, not Negro. This striking assertion demonstrates how racial prejudice impacted supposedly unbiased historical analysis, causing scholars to either disregard Nubian achievements or assign them to non-African origins. Happily, archaeological evidence has remained consistent throughout the 20th century, and ongoing excavations have uncovered increasingly more of Nubia's remarkable history. The 1960s construction of the Aswan High Dam, which inundated numerous ancient Nubian sites beneath Lake Nasser, spurred emergency archaeological investigation that significantly advanced knowledge of the region's history. Now, global museums showcase remarkable artifacts confirming Nubia's advanced civilization. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston possesses one of the largest collections of Nubian artifacts outside Africa, featuring exquisite jewelry, sculpture, and pottery from the 25th dynasty. The British Museum safeguards the renowned Shabaka stone and its vital theological text. Khartoum, the National Museum of Sudan, displays spectacular discoveries from royal tombs and temples, yet the monuments they erected perhaps offer the most potent evidence of the Kushite achievement. Despite ages of weathering, looting, and intentional ruin, the pyramids of Iluru, Nuri, and Meo remain in the Sudan desert. The columns built by Tahaka still ascend to the sky at Karanach. The temple complexes at Jebel Barkal still evoke awe at the foot of the sacred mountain. These physical remains reveal much about the Kushite kingdom and its 25th dynasty of black pharaohs. Let's explore what makes their legacy so significant for our understanding of ancient history and African civilization. First, the 25th dynasty represents a unique moment when the traditional power dynamic between Egypt and Nubia was reversed. For most of their shared history, Egypt had been the dominant power, sometimes ruling Nubian territories as a colonial overlord. The ascent of Kushite kings who conquered and governed Egypt as pharaohs reveals that African political authority was dynamic, shifting with various centers of influence throughout history. Furthermore, the Kushite era illustrates a sophisticated cultural exchange rather than mere subjugation. The Nubian pharaohs did not seek to eliminate Egyptian culture and impose their own. Instead, they presented themselves as champions of traditional Egyptian religious practices, restoring temples and reviving ancient rituals. They incorporated elements of Egyptian royal iconography while retaining distinct Nubian features in their portrayals. This cultural blend is especially visible in art and architecture. Kushite royal statuary merges Egyptian poses and symbolism with uniquely Nubian characteristics, such as broader faces, fuller lips, and varied crown styles. Temple architecture fused Egyptian elements, such as pylons and hypostyle halls, with unique proportions and decorative details that identify them as Kushite creations. The ram-headed sphinxes flanking the temple approaches symbolize Amun, the deity central to both Egyptian and Nubian faiths. However, their stocky forms and distinctive decorations are uniquely Nubian. This represents not mere imitation, but a creative adaptation that blended traditions to forge something novel. Third, the religious policies of the 25th dynasty profoundly affected Egyptian theology. The Kushite pharaohs' focus on traditional worship, especially their emphasis on the moon and the Theban theological system, helped safeguard ancient religious texts and practices that could have been lost during Egypt's politically fragmented Third Intermediate period. The famous Shabaka stone, commissioned by the second Kushite pharaoh, holds the sole surviving copy of the Memphite theology, a vital text for comprehending ancient Egyptian creation beliefs which is remarkable given it was carved in stone. Shibaka guaranteed its preservation for more than 2,500 years, offering modern scholars priceless understanding of Egyptian religious thought. Fourth, the practical accomplishments of the Kushite rulers, especially Taharqa, enhanced the daily lives of commoners beyond grand structures. They established and maintained irrigation systems, excavated wells, and developed grain storage. These practical endeavors boosted agricultural output and refined water control, directly benefiting populations across Egypt and Nubia. Fifth, the Kushite era witnessed significant technological advancements, notably in metallurgy. Although the 25th dynasty did not witness the peak of Nubian iron production, which occurred later in Meroe, it established the essential economic and political groundwork for these advancements. The subsequent Kushite expertise in ironworking, utilizing numerous smelting furnaces to create tools and weapons, stands as one of Africa's most notable technological accomplishments. Sixth, the international relations of the 25th dynasty reveal Nubia's incorporation into a wider world system. Diplomatic and military exchanges with Assyria, Judah, and other Near Eastern powers indicate that Kush was a recognized participant on the international stage, engaging in the intricate politics of the ancient Mediterranean and Near Eastern world. The biblical mention of Taka, king of Ethiopia, Taharqa, coming to Judah's aid against Assyria signifies more than mere religious reference. It is evidence of genuine political and military alliances that shaped the history of the entire region. Far from being isolated, Nubia under the 25th dynasty was linked to an extensive network of trade, diplomacy, and occasional conflict stretching from Mesopotamia to the Mediterranean and deep into Africa. Seventh, and most importantly, the story of the Black Pharaohs compels us to revise conventional narratives concerning ancient Africa. The sophisticated state organization, monumental architecture, intricate religious structures, and international diplomacy of Kushite Nubia refute colonial-era portrayals of pre-colonial Africa as underdeveloped politically or culturally. The recognition of Nubia's achievements should not rely on comparison with Egypt or other non-African civilizations. Kush was remarkable in its own right, possessing a history exceeding 2,000 years, which surpasses the duration of Rome's empire. Its unique artistic traditions, architectural innovations, and technological advancements constitute significant contributions to human cultural heritage. The significance of the 25th dynasty lies in its embodiment of the intricate relationship between two of Africa's foremost ancient civilizations. Instead of viewing Egypt and Nubia as distinct entities or relegating Nubia to a subordinate position, the era of Kushite rule showcases their profound interdependence and reciprocal influence. What followed this remarkable kingdom after the 25th dynasty? Despite being expelled from Egypt by the Assyrians around 656 BCE, the kingdom of Kush continued to thrive in its Nubian homeland for almost another 1,000 years. The royal capital eventually moved from Napata to Meroe, further south along the Nile, where iron production emerged as a major economic force. Throughout this Neolithic era, the kingdom preserved numerous cultural features from the 25th dynasty, including pyramid burials for rulers, the worship of Amun alongside native deities such as the lion god Apodum, and an artistic style merging Egyptian and Nubian influences. The Baroque script, stemming from Egyptian hieroglyphics but representing the Kushite language, was fully employed during this time. Kushite queens, often rendered as Candace in Greek and Roman sources, gained particular prominence during the later Meroitic period. These powerful women sometimes ruled independently rather than as consorts, leading armies and conducting diplomacy with other powers. One such queen famously negotiated with Augustus Caesar's representatives around 21 BCE, securing favorable terms after military confrontations. The kingdom finally declined in the 4th century CE. Weakened by shifting trade patterns, environmental damage from intensive iron production, and pressure from the rising kingdom of Aksum in modern-day Ethiopia, yet even after Kush's political collapse, its cultural influence endured in the successor Christian kingdoms of Nubia, which preserved unique artistic traditions and architecture shaped by their Kushite legacy. Examining the broader legacy of the Nubian 25th dynasty and the Kushite civilization reveals several relevant insights. The story of the Black Pharaohs, for instance, reminds us that history is seldom simple or linear. power shifts, cultures blend, and innovations arise from unexpected sources. The conventional view of Egypt as the superior civilization and Nubia as its subordinate neighbor ignores the intricate reality of their relationship, which encompassed periods of Nubian dominance and substantial Nubian contributions to mutual cultural evolution. Furthermore, the re-evaluation of Nubian achievements illustrates how historical accounts are molded by contemporary biases and political aims. The downplaying of Kushite contributions in earlier Western scholarship was not accidental, but stemmed from colonial-era racial theories that struggled with evidence of sophisticated African civilizations. Acknowledging these biases enables us to examine historical questions with increased awareness of our own blind spots. Third, the cultural blending pursued by the Kushite pharaohs presents an engaging model that neither dismisses external influences nor discards native customs. The rulers of the 25th dynasty incorporated aspects of Egyptian culture for practical gains while retaining distinct Nubian characteristics in their portrayal and rule. This careful adaptation enabled them to operate successfully within Egyptian frameworks while preserving their unique cultural identity. Fourth, the 25th dynasty's focus on restoration and preservation, rebuilding temples, documenting ancient texts, and reviving traditional practices shows an understanding of history's worth that aligns with contemporary concerns about cultural heritage. By actively establishing themselves as guardians of tradition, the Nubian pharaohs not only validated their authority, but also secured the passing down of knowledge that risked being lost. Fifth, the practical accomplishments of rulers such as Tahaka demonstrate that even in societies where kings asserted divine authority, successful governance frequently hinged on meeting the material necessities of the populace. The irrigation systems, wells, and grain stores built during the 25th dynasty likely secured greater popular support than elaborate theological claims or massive architecture. The story of the Black Pharaohs finally contributes to a more accurate and nuanced understanding of Africa's pre-colonial past. Instead of viewing the continent as an empty space awaiting European discovery or assuming that major developments originated from outside, acknowledging Nubia's achievements restores agency and complexity to African historical narratives. The pyramids in the Sudan desert, the massive statues of Kushite kings, and the temples featuring ram-headed sphinxes. These are not mere curiosities or footnotes to Egyptian history, but monuments to one of the world's great ancient civilizations. The fact that this history was concealed for so long reflects more about modern biases than Nubia's true importance. Archaeological work in Sudan continues, yielding new discoveries that regularly expand our understanding of the Kushite civilization. Advanced techniques such as satellite imaging, geophysical surveys, and DNA analysis offer fresh insights into long-standing research questions. Each finding adds detail to the picture of this remarkable African kingdom and its dynasty of Black Pharaohs. For the people of modern Sudan, this ancient heritage signifies a crucial link to their history. Despite political challenges that have occasionally hindered archaeological work and site preservation, many Sudans take great pride in their nation's role as the home of this advanced civilization. The pyramids of Meroe feature on Sudanese currency and in tourism advertisements, serving as symbols of national identity and historical accomplishment. In Egypt, recognition of the Kushite contribution to its long history is growing. The 25th dynasty is now properly included in exhibitions and educational materials about Egypt's pharaonic past, acknowledged as a period of religious revival and cultural flourishing instead of being dismissed as a foreign interruption. For the world, the story of the Black Pharaohs provides an important correction to simplified narratives about ancient history. It highlights Africa's pivotal role in early civilization, exposes the intricacy of cross-cultural exchanges in the ancient world, and serves as a reminder that power and influence have transcended any single region or group. As we conclude our journey through the world of the Nubian Black Pharaohs, the most vital lesson is appreciation for human creativity and resilience across time and space. The kings and queens of Kush, the artists who carved their statues, the priests who maintained their temples, the engineers who built their pyramids, and the ordinary people who lived under their rule, all contributed to a vibrant civilization that left a lasting mark on human heritage. When viewing images of the pyramids at Meroe, the ram-headed sphinxes of Jebel Barkal, or the face of Taharqa on a museum statue, remember that you are observing more than mere artifacts. You are witnessing the legacy of rulers who redefined the connection between two great African civilizations, safeguarding ancient knowledge while fostering new cultural synthesis and erecting monuments that have endured the test of time. The history of the Black Pharaohs illustrates that the full tapestry of history contains many threads often missed by conventional narratives. By uncovering and valuing these omitted stories, we achieve a deeper, more accurate comprehension of our common human past. Beneath the stars illuminating the ancient pyramids of Nuri and Iluru, where Nubian pharaohs rest eternally, their legacy continues to inspire scholars, artists, and ordinary people fascinated by this remarkable chapter in Africa's long and complex history. Though the Black Pharaohs reigned nearly 3,000 years ago, their achievements and the questions they raise about power, identity, and cultural exchange remain profoundly relevant today. And perhaps this is the greatest proof of their importance. Not merely that they governed Egypt and Nubia for a century, nor just that they erected monuments that endure, but that their narrative compels us to think more profoundly and inclusively about the ancient world and the varied civilizations that molded it. As you settle into sleep, envision once again the parade of a Nubian pharaoh through the magnificent temple at Karash. The sun caught the golden regalia, priests chanted ancient prayers, and the crowds watched in awe. This was not a historical anomaly, but a thread in its rich fabric. A moment when the usual story changed, when the subjugated became dominant, when the cultural stream moved both south and north. This image powerfully reminds us that history is neither straight nor simple, that power shifts unexpectedly, and that human achievement transcends geographical and racial limits. The long-obscured story of the Black Pharaohs has resurfaced to rightfully occupy our understanding of the ancient world, standing as a testament to Africa's central role in human civilization's development.